the neighbors intend to eat us. It has been a week since that terrifying night. It feels like a whole year has passed. My family's life has become darker and more suffocating than ever before. Feeling unsafe, my wife has taken a temporary leave from work, and our son has also stopped attending school. My job can be done online, so the family's finances are still being maintained. There are no more unusual occurrences, but the joy and freedom are gone. We constantly feel anxious and unsettled in our own home. Seeing my son and wife visibly losing weight, I feel deeply distressed. The more I get angry, the more I want to solve everything. An afternoon while sitting and working by the window, a habit has formed. I regularly observe my neighbors and their every action. Every day, like clockwork, a delivery person arrives at their house, and the recipient is always Brenna. I'm not sure what they do for work, but I've never seen them leave the house for too long. In the evening, a rather luxurious car parked in front of the neighbor's house. The two men get out of the car. Immediately, I recognize Officer Mason Davis and the other person whom I haven't met before. The two men are dressed casually, chatting and laughing and carrying a box. They knock on the door and are invited inside by Brenna. So, it seems they know each other. Officer Mason and Brenna's family, Dominic. From the start, all my accusations were just meaningless ramblings because Dominic will be innocent by any means. I took photos of everything I witnessed in case they might be needed later. It wasn't until late the next evening that Officer Mason left Brenna and Dominic's house. He left alone, without the other man, still in a very cheerful state, just like the day before. I didn't say anything to my wife about what I had observed. I want my wife and son to have a more relaxed and lighthearted state of mind. My wife can't keep taking time off from work, and Roger's leave from school has expired. Life needs to return to normal. I decided to drop off and pick up my wife and son every day to ensure their absolute safety. On the third day, after Officer Mason left the neighbor's house, the stranger still hadn't appeared. I began to speculate about the worst possible scenario for that man. He might have been dismembered and digested. What should I do? Report it to the police? But I'll have to deal with that strange and secretive Officer Mason again. And who would believe me? They might think I'm just harassing the neighbors, suffering from paranoia, or even being crazy. I started investigating information about Officer Mason. Surprisingly, he has a less than favorable past. Abuse, theft, and even sexual assault. How could he have even joined the police force? Researching Dominic, there is quite limited information about him, but it's enough to shock me. Dominic Miller, born August 13, 1983. Former police chief dismissed due to ethical misconduct scandal. I gradually started to understand some information about the relationship between Mason and Dominic. The next day, an envelope from the Forensic Institute arrived at our house. It's the results of the test on the meat from that night. My phone suddenly rang. Mr. Moore, this is Officer Mason. Have you received the test results? We have a copy here as well. Please review the results and call me back so we can discuss the best course of action. Officer Mason hung up with a very annoying, mocking tone. Both my wife and I had been eagerly anticipating these results. But when we actually had it in our hands, it was really difficult for my wife and me to face. The test results just lay on the table for nearly a whole day. That evening, when we went to our room, we decided to open it and see the results. The results showed that it was pork. My wife breathed a sigh of relief. thanking God that we could start over with a normal life. But I wasn't relieved, because I knew more. All of this wasn't as simple as it seemed. After much contemplation, I decided to persuade my wife to leave. I accept that I may be seen as a coward, but my wife and son are far more important than anything else. I don't want my family's life to have any further involvement with those frightening people. No one can help my family right now, not even the police. Roger and our future children need a better environment to grow up in. No, Kane, I don't want it like this, my wife cried, feeling helpless and desperate. I embraced my wife and son. After quickly packing up for 3 days, we drove away in the night. We will find a way to deal with that house. It's still a valuable asset. We moved to a different, unfamiliar town, into a smaller house, but one that felt warm and comfortable. I continued with my work. My wife found a new job with better pay, and Roger gradually adjusted to his new school. 3 months later, I watched the news and learned that Brenna had passed away. The news reported that Dominic had brutally murdered his wife in the bedroom. Dominic was taken to the police station in a state of uncontrollable madness. According to the doctor's report, Dominic had contracted a parasitic infection from eating raw meat for an extended period. Police also discovered a large amount of unidentified meat packed into 2 refrigerators in Dominic and Brenna's kitchen. The meat samples were sent for testing to determine exactly which animal they came from. Besides Dominic, the hospital also admitted another rabies case in a critical condition, that is Officer Mason. There was no news about the stranger who had come to Dominic's house that night. Indeed, it seems that their family had a preference for eating raw meat. And as for where that meat came from, only I and the 2 people suffering from rabies know for sure.